Let's dive, however, into our earlier game tonight. You called it. You said the Celtics were going to force a Game 7, and they needed Jason Tatum to do it, and that's exactly what happened.
The man stepped up. He's a young star, and he showed why tonight. He stepped up. He was absolutely spectacular. He was dancing on cats. He was taking it to the hole. He was big boying dudes that were smaller than him. He was taking taller dudes, slower dudes outside. He made 7 threes. He finished with 46 points, and Giannis had 44 and 20, and Jason Tatum still outdueled him. It was nothing short of a sensational performance, living up to all the things we suspected he is and was frustrated by when he didn't show it to us.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. The Garden is going to be rocking on Sunday, okay? And look, when it comes down to Game 7s, you're losing sleep. It's no sleep. Nobody's able to get a good night rest, ready for the moment. But I will say this. If the Bucks think it's going to be some sweet walking into that Garden, you know how rowdy it's going to be. I feel like Jaylen Brown is going to rise to the occasion. And by the way, I put the jank on the Bucks tonight.
I will say this to you. The Bucks won Game 1 in Boston. They won Game 5 in Boston. The Boston Celtics damn well had better not lose 3 games at TD Bank Garden in the...
Like so many others, because home court in this one hasn't meant a whole lot. Giannis, Jason Tatum, sometimes you show the stars walking in and it's somebody else. It was the stars walking in and then they put on their work clothes and went to work. Giannis, spectacular. And it was a little bit of everything in the bag as he had a career playoff high 17 in the first quarter. But Boston, they are not about to take a step back. Jason Tatum finds Marcus Smart. He hits the 3. Celtics lead by 2. Tatum. All 3 of these, and the Celtics up 5. This was a rough stretch for Milwaukee, a great stretch for the Celtics as they built a 10-point lead. It's back to 6, late going in the first half. They're Smart off the glass with the left hand. He had 16 in the first half. Tatum had 18 in the first half, and the Celtics go into the break up 10. 11-point lead. Tatum. Can't let him have it. You'll pay. Then Tatum. Working around Grayson Allen. Another look at that spin move. Celtics could have been in a closeout situation had they just handled their business in the fourth quarter at home, but they didn't. So now they're having to work on the road, but they're ready to go to work. There's a steal from Jaylen Brown, the coast to coast. That's the 4th on Giannis. That is Tatum again. Just bully ball. Celtics up 11. Tatum again. Portis checking it. You can take those 3 with you. 30 through 3 quarters. Up a dozen heading to the 4th. Trying to lock down and put this one to bed. That's not going to be easy because that man, Giannis,
in the trap,
unguardable,
getting in the pass
and the Bucks,
and this is what superstars
getting back
do.
into it. They're going to give you that. But Giannis has gotten so much better. Just a complete game. As good as anyone in the world. 4-point game. Speaking of, as good as anybody in the world, certainly you got to throw Tatum's name into the mix now because he's got everything working. Up 4, up 7. Spectacular. What a series this is. Back and forth. Whatever you want. Tatum's got it. 9-point lead. Giannis, is that a foul?
No.
They let it go. Don't reward the flop. And I don't care which way it is. I'm not rooting for either team. I just play basketball. And they play on. Tatum. What are you going to do? Just watch and marvel. The Celtics just aren't going to be caught tonight. Down the lane. Tatum. 3 the hard way. What a spectacular performance. Giannis had 44 and 20. An all-time performance. And he wasn't the leading scorer in the game because that man and the Celtics force a Game 7. So again, monster night from a 2-time MVP and reigning champ with Jason Tatum, the star of the game. 46 ties, the second most by a Celtics player when facing elimination, tying Paul Pierce and falling one shy of a guy that never got as much love as he probably deserved. That's a man by the name of Sam Jones. Game 7, Sunday, 3:30, ABC, Tatum, on what it took in this Game 6.
It just boils down to, it's 5-6 minutes left, and, this was our season on the line. So, just trying to do what it took.
It was a big-time performance. Our backs against the wall, too. Love to see, JT come out aggressive and, definitely a signature game for the Celtics and for Jason.
Good old Game 7. Beautiful. Never take it for granted. Enjoy the game. Go out there and try to play good basketball. Hopefully, we can put ourselves in a position to win. If we do so, great. If we don't, we know our efforts gonna always be there.
How fun are nights like tonight?
Oh, the best.
How good is this series?
I want that to be best of 25.
Yeah.
I could watch that every night all summer.
There you go. Now, it's funny. I'm sitting here right now having a flashback. It was like January. You and I were talking about Boston, sort of trying to figure out what are they doing? They're just kind of in mud. Is this what you guys want to be, right? Now look at who they are. Look at what Tatum is. He's taken his game to this level, and he's carrying the team with him confidence-wise. What has he done?
To me, he has just evolved as a guy that can beat you on every platform, and I think that's the one thing that was the final component was what he had early in this game. Let's take a little early, little late, because he did it both ways. And this is something that I don't think he could have done even 2 years ago, Scott. He's going to come off of this ball screen. And I think old Jason Tatum a couple years ago would come off this, and he'd see this wall, and he probably would have either picked it up or maybe he veers out toward half court. Instead, watch what he does. He comes off, and now he's going to take this extra dribble because he knows he's got to get all the way into the teeth. And what happens while he's doing that, he draws so much attention. Take a look at Drew Holiday, right? He's watching all the action, and it's his perfect timed cut right here by Derek White, because when he makes this cut, take a look at the back line. Grayson Allen, he has no choice but to react to the cut, and that means you got Jaylen Brown lined up for a three in the corner. And it's all because Tatum took the extra dribble to make sure he engaged those backline guys. So you can do it as a facilitator. And then this one is where I thought the biggest shot of the game. This is when Milwaukee's making this run, and you take a look at this drive. Starts with a baseline drive here, and you're going to have to get a reaction out of Bobby Portis. Now, you got two guys on the weak side of the floor, and they're over here camped out and waiting for the Boston Celtics. You got two shooters. Now, you're going to have Wesley Matthews have to make a decision. When this ball is kicked out, he's the one guy left on the weak side, so that means he has to take first pass. Even though he's guarding Tatum, he has to get to the first three-point shooter that he sees. So what happens? Does it, rotates, one more swing. Now, Pat Connaughton was a little late getting there, and when he rotates over, his hands are down. By this time, Tatum is already cooking. So if you're Connaughton, that's got to be a dead sprint to make sure he puts it down. He doesn't quite do it. He's a little reluctant. Tatum rises up, makes, I think, the biggest shot of the game. It takes it from 5 to 8 at a time when it was just hanging in a balance, and you felt Giannis was about to do something special to kind of another ridiculous comeback. Tatum was having none of it. Spectacular. I talk about it all the time, pulling that seat up to the table of the superstars. He's right there, man. He's creeping in. He's making some room. Give me some elbow room, guys. We're sliding my chair in here, and this is the kind of statement game that it takes.
Young man's 24, and I think he's quiet. He's not a roar kind of a guy, right? Like, that's not his thing, not a pound his chest sort of a dude. But I feel like the play you're seeing, it's he can't help but become that leader, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like you're seeing that, and he's not all they've got. Like, it's a complete squad, but it feels like he's not just with his play, but just in terms of follow me type of a behavior. You know, you feel the
absolutely. I know exactly what you're saying. I think if you took the entire season encapsulated, you'd have a hard time finding a better offensive performance than what Jason Tatum put on tonight. He looks so incredibly comfortable in this environment from the very beginning of the game. Now, it's going to take one more to get past this team, and this is going to come down to one possession game in the fourth quarter on Sunday.
Do you care to hazard a guess? I mean, it's a series where the road teams won 4 of the 6.
You know how this rolls, right? I picked the Bucks going in. I'm going to hang with them. They're alive. It's 3-3.
Don't be that stubborn guy that says, if you've seen something that's gotten you off, then say it.
I'm betting on Giannis.
All right.
That's what it comes down to. And it may sound silly to people in Boston, maybe to a lot of people because of their defense and the way Tatum's playing, but that man, I just have a lot of faith that he will be the guy that ultimately prevails in the fourth quarter.
He had 44 and 20 on Friday night.
Wasn't the best player on the court.
What enough?
That's
what
nuts.
A night, man. In Game 5, Klay Thompson arrives on his bicycle for Game 6 and a chance to close it out. Clay's averaging more than 27 in Game 6s since Game 6. No Ja, which is a bummer. And Clay, you know the story, you know the injuries, you know all the work that he's put in to get back. 3 of 3 from beyond the arc, 11 first quarter points. Dillon Brooks has had a rough series. He was tremendous in this one, and he was aggressively hunting his shots. As the Grizzlies build a lead, Brooks, no foul call there, and he gets called for a flagrant one as he full-on shoves Curry. Thompson talking to Brooks there. Been a lot of talk in this series, a lot of chatter, as we know, back and forth. Game's tied at 55. Clay, corner 3. That's pure. Warriors up 3. Then it's Thompson. You got to worry about him just going ahead and pulling. That allows him to get to the rim. Now it's Brooks, Jaren Jackson getting a little chatty with one another. Grizzlies timeout. Jordan Poole and Brooks. Now it's Jaren Jackson. We good? Just play ball, fellas. All right, we will. What a shooter Desmond Bane is. He hits the 3. Next possession, it's Curry. Trying to get to that spot just inside the free throw lane. He hits it. Warriors up 1 after 3. In the 4th, Brooks, step back. That's cash money. He had 30 on the night. Grizzlies lead. Golden State leads. Bane, he said it, best shooter in the world. He said, Steph's better than me, and other than that, you're going to have to prove it to me. After some really poor sets that Tim Legler wants to talk about, Golden State settles down, runs a really nice half-court set. They get a 3 from Wiggins. This was the key stretch. After that 3, the ball bounces off Brooks' foot. Wiggins gets the dunk. Now Steph, they can do this to you, man, in the blink of an eye. You go from up 1 to down a bit. 8-0 run, they weren't done. Looney feeds Draymond. He had 14, 16 rebounds, 8 assists. Off the miss, one of Looney's 22 rebounds, 11 were offensive. 7-point game, make it 10. It's Steph again, the all-time leading three-point shooter in the history of the game. Off the miss, who else? Looney, he gathers. Again, I said earlier, Clay didn't need it. I don't know what Clay needs. He knows what he needs. He needs to shoot that 3 and hit it. Now Steph, step back as the shot clock hits zeros and the clock hits midnight for this talented Memphis team. Such a bummer not to have Ja involved because of the injury. But the Warriors, it's been such an amazing run for them. They've been kind of everything, right? They were the champs. They were the team that wore the bullseye. Then they were in a play-in game, and now here they are for the 6th time in 8 years in a conference final. They made 5 straight finals before missing the postseason each of the previous 2 years. Every one of these teams made multiple finals. The Warriors are looking to join the Bulls as the only team to make the finals in 6 of those years. On the other end of it, Taylor Jenkins, his team was the 2 seed. They had a hell of a year, and it's come to an end.
Well, first off, congrats to the Warriors. I know Steve's not here tonight, but congrats to Steve, Mike Brown, coaching staff, the players. What a heck of a series. Great competitiveness for 6 games. I'm going to tip my cap to them. Heck of a team. They tested us. They made us better. They made me better. A heck of a series, but congrats to those guys. And I just told our group how proud I am of them. I've never been a part of a group like this, how special they are. That's the players, that's the coaches, that's staff. This obviously stings. Such a special season with a special group. And I want them to cherish that and remember that despite this loss and the end of our season right now, how this is going to motivate us moving forward. The growth individually, the growth collectively from this season. It's only going to make us better. This is a step in the direction of this bright future that we talk about all the time. As disappointing as it is, I had to remind them of everyone's commitment every single day. not the work just in the games, but the works in the offseason, the work in the preseason, non-game days. And at the end of the day, what it comes down to is the care factor. I mean, I've never been a part of a group, collection of players and staff that have had this level of care for many years now. I mean, but this is a third season here, and this group earned everything they got. You know, just wasn't good enough in the end. That's basketball. But I'm just beyond proud of everyone's commitment and care to making this such a special season, and that I also know that this is going to motivate them to continue having that care factor moving forward, to continue to build 1 year at a time, to hopefully bring a championship to Memphis.
That guy impresses me every time he speaks, man. I just
Absolutely.
give me more of that. They're just getting started, and no one wants any attaboys at this point. But clearly that team is not done. They're just getting going, and he's a big part of the reason why. Tim Legler's here. I love to take people out there watching inside our process. We're talking about what we're going to talk about here. And there's a stretch where you're like, man, what are the Warriors doing? They're playing like the basketball's on fire. You're a little concerned. And then in that 2-minute stretch, man, they erased a lot of issues. So, yes, they move on, but do you find yourself still saying, there are things that I want them to button up as well?
Yeah, you see me take a lot of notes during the game. I always have multiple agendas going at the same time, just in case this thing takes a turn.
Right, if this, then that.
And there was a time, and I thought that their impatience offensively, almost like each of them wanted to end the series with one shot. You can't do that against a team like that. It snowballs the other direction. However, to their credit, the approach that prevailed was the approach that we've seen for the last 8 years. When they move the basketball and they get multiple touches and multiple ball reversals with all these weapons, this is what it looks like. Dribble drive, kick out, up fake, draw two, one more swing, wide open look, shoulder square. That's beautiful basketball.
The beautiful basketball porn, I would sometimes call it. It's late night TV. It's fun.
Exactly. Again here, kick and slip. Then hit Looney. He could have had a layup. Instead, he takes a dribble, draws a guy, kicks out another shot with your shoulder square, and then one more time. Let's go two-man game, draw a couple defenders, get downhill, bring guys to you, hit the cutter on the baseline, one more drop off to Draymond. Yeah. So here's the good news for the Warriors. When they play this way, they still have enough weapons there, right, to win the whole thing.
Sure.
The question is, will it be like that? Because this has been the toughest grind they've had to get to this point. We saw 6 of these appearances in the last 8 years. This is by far the toughest grind because of everything they've dealt with and the up and down nature of the way that they have played. But yet at the end of the day, here they are. And if they bottle up that, what we just showed in that clip, this team has still got enough talent to win the whole thing.
I do wonder about this, and this is not in any way a knock on Mike Brown. He's been a head coach. He's going to be again. But you're not the head coach, and you're not the guy who's been the head coach, whose voice has been in their ears, who can get on him and ride him to a degree the way Steve Kerr could. His absence, do you think that had anything to do with the fact that there were times that the play was uneven?
What hit me sometimes was I'm hearing Steve Kerr's voice in my head. All those times he's mic'd up over the years, and you see in those moments when they're playing like too fast, impatient, trying to hit the home run every time down the court, he would be the guy, and he could do it in an angry fashion because he's the head coach. Timeout, he's clearly irritated, get in. Here's what we need to do. Move it, swing it, reverse it. We'll get that shot the second time around, and if we do that, we're a completely different team. Mike Brown has even said it. I've been focused this entire time on what we do defensively. Well, now he's piloting this thing, and so maybe what he would say might be a little bit different in those huddles, and maybe that's just what the Warriors could have needed possibly these last couple of games to put this team away a little bit easier. Give Memphis credit, man. They fight you tooth and nail, but Golden State's got more talent. They've got more weapons, more shot makers. They just have to not make it easy on the defense by letting multiple guys touch it on the same possession. Then they're still very, very hard to guard.
I was thinking of my man Stuart Scott during that Boston highlight about how great he'd have been on a moment like that. We always used to talk about Stu facts. He would always give you that one on the way out here. 70 rebounds for the Warriors tonight. That's the most in almost 40 years of playoff basketball. Looney had 22. The extra possessions, just stretch them out, get some threes, and that one little chunk good enough to get them to the finals, and here they are again.
Absolutely.
Can they win it? Something more, right? Stepping into a rare, rare place. And he doesn't necessarily seem outwardly like that guy, right? Not demonstrative and vocal and all the rest of it. But how comfortable, Brian, is he in becoming that guy?
He outplayed Kevin Durant in the last series, okay? Giannis is out here hitting his team with a 2x4. There's a banner above my head. Down the hallway, there's 2 MVP trophies. They made some replicas that they have down the hall. Okay? The Bucks have won their last 8 closeout games. This is what this team does. They're on their home court. And Tatum just handles it. And I'm sitting there watching this going back and forth, Scott, and I'm saying, this is the present and the future of the Eastern Conference. This is a potentially historic rivalry we're seeing get born right here. This has been one of the most remarkable series I've ever seen, and this back and forth ranks right up there with anything that I saw LeBron have in the Eastern Conference against any rival.
Yeah, Tim Legler said, I wish there was a best of 25 when he came here tonight and walked in our place. And meanwhile, on the other side, you got Giannis, and you said to me off air, the Bucks have the best player in the series. Well, I mean, Tatum had something to say about that on Friday night, but I just wonder about the resolve of this team. Like, they've already won in Boston, right? But you had a chance at home and you didn't do it. Where'd that leave them tonight?
Yeah, I mean, they just missing Chris Middleton, it hurts them in so many different ways. This is a game where the Celtics were making shots, and the Bucks were not. They didn't have another option to just take some of the pressure off of Giannis offensively. You're not going to win a game in 2022, even in this kind of defensive series, not breaking 100 points. They can cover it, they can stitch it together, but they are playing less than whole. And to beat this Celtics team less than whole, it's a really big ask.
It is. And about Middleton, there have been some chatter maybe for Game 7. I mean, if they don't win that, there is no tomorrow. But if he can't go, he can't go. What do you know?
Yeah. So I would say earlier this week, the folks I was talking to were giving me some optimism about Middleton playing this weekend. But that is not happened. That has not developed. And now I would say there's pessimism about Sunday. And frankly, I've been told that even if the Bucks advance the start of the conference finals, there'd be pessimism. He'd be ready to start it. But Scott, good luck handicapping this one. The road teams are 4-2 in this series. Giannis is not going to be intimidated. He's an absolute monster. I can't wait to get there. I'm going to be an interested spectator, just like everybody else on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, but I always pay attention to the way you say what you say, and you're not one that
and he's been a welcome addition. His veteran leadership and what he does for you defensively on that front line is underappreciated, Kendrick Perkins. You're absolutely right about that, but here's why I respectfully disagree with your position about Giannis. I don't believe that the Boston Celtics, at least in the games in Milwaukee, are going to shoot the ball as effectively as they did in Game 2. Long shots, long rebounds, open court opportunities for Giannis. He's going to make layups / dunks, or he's going to get to the free throw line. Now, he's only shooting, shot 54% in Game 1, 55% in Game 2. So I get that, and that might work to the Celtics' benefit. I'm not saying that's going to lead to them losing this series. I still got them winning this series in 7 games, even though Milwaukee gave me cause to pause when they were playing big boy basketball in Game 1. I'm just saying I think in the process of watching Milwaukee lose, I don't think it's going to be because Giannis has been neutralized. I think it's going to be because those pieces around him, Boston found a way to negate to some degree. And they're not going to be as effective as they were in Game 1. It's going to be more like they were in Game 2. I think Giannis is going to be ultra aggressive. I think as a result, he's going to get his shots. He's going to get his opportunities. He's going to get his points. And you got to watch the amount of fouls, particularly when they're in Milwaukee, that are going to get called against Boston. So it's going to be up and down. Don't get me wrong. There's going to be some games where you're absolutely right. But I think there's going to be about a couple of more games where Giannis goes ballistic. That's how I view this.
Well, look, I'm looking at it right now, Stephen A. Okay. Giannis in Game 1 went 9 for 25, okay?
That is correct. That's correct.
In Game 2, he went 11 for 26. We haven't seen Giannis Antetokounmpo not be efficient. We haven't seen Giannis Antetokounmpo struggle like this at field goal attempts when majority of the time he's bullying his way to get into the paint. What I'm telling you right now is that them guys from the Beantown, they're not going. They don't care. They're not backing down from Giannis Antetokounmpo. And it's no disrespect to Giannis, but what I saw in Game 2 was I saw a reflection of a team that the coach has their attention. The way that they came out with their intensity, the way that Ime Udoka is speaking out in the public saying we're not ducking and dodging nobody, we coming straight through whoever, we're going to have to play whoever eventually. And then I go out and I see Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown play with that fire. I see Grant Williams getting into Giannis Antetokounmpo, body him up. I see Al Horford quietly getting physical down there and doing what he has to do. And they didn't even have their defensive player of the year, Marcus Smart. Here's why I say they're going to be able to keep Giannis from dominating. Without the Bucks having Chris Middleton, now you're able to put even more attention on Giannis Antetokounmpo. Now all of a sudden that late game 3-5 pick and roll that they usually play down the stretch, that's missing because you have to pick your poison. So now all of a sudden you key in, you take those driving gaps, you're showing help. All of a sudden Giannis can't get to the rack like he's accustomed to getting to.
I'm not denying any of that. I'm conceding that that has happened. What I'm saying to you is it going to last? And my response to that is no, not throughout the series. I got at least a couple of games where Giannis is going to get off. I know that wasn't the case in games 1 and 2. Easily concede that. I think it'll happen again in 2 more games where Boston will ultimately win this series. But I do believe there's going to be a couple of games where that Giannis Antetokounmpo that you're accustomed to seeing, that you're accustomed to praising his dominance, that you talk about no matter what smoke is brought his way, he answers the call. I think for at least a couple of games, we're going to see that from him. And it'll be enough for this series to go to a 7th game. I don't believe they're going to be able to do this to Giannis the entire series in terms of his inefficiency. I don't believe that's going to last.
Well, look, I agree with you to a certain extent that, listen, Giannis is probably going to have one dominant game. But remember this. You remember when the Brooklyn Nets and the Celtics played in the first round? And you remember after game 1, I came on here and I told you, I said, Kevin Durant got punked. And you said, what? Are you telling me KD got punked? And then you remember you said, oh, he's going to go out there, he's going to have 50. He didn't do that in game 2. I'm just telling you, Stephen A., this Celtic team, this physicality of this front line is the reason that they're the #1 defensive team in the NBA. And I'm here to tell you, if they stay healthy, they're not going anywhere. And I don't disagree. Giannis may have one game, but he's not going to dominate enough for them to win this series.
And I'm saying to you, I think it's going to be 2 games, enough for this to go to a 7th game, and Boston will seal the deal. But I think
so you think Boston's winning?
I think Boston's winning this series in 7 games. But I believe Boston has to hit perimeter shots in order to do it, because I think offensively they don't have much to offer on the interior. They need to rely on their thoroughbreds to bring home, and I think that Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum and those boys will pull it off.
Real quick, Molly, Stephen A., guess what? This is how much matchups matter in the playoffs. I strongly believe, just say if Giannis takes over this series and the Bucks win this series against the Celtics, I believe if they go on to play the Miami Heat, they will lose. But I think if the Boston Celtics win this series, which I got them winning in 7, if they was to play the Miami Heat, they would beat the Miami Heat.
Well, let me say this to you. I got the Boston Celtics